Buoyant force and flotation. Objective: to understand how buoyant force helps an object float or sink. When you drop a steel nail in water, it sinks. But a ship made of steel floats in the ocean, although its weight is much more than the tiny nail. You must have wondered why this is so. There are two factors that determine whether an object will sink or float. One of them is the buoyant force that is acting on the object, and the other is the densities of both the object and the fluid that it's in. When an object is immersed in a liquid, there are two forces that get into action. The first force is the weight of the object that acts vertically downwards. This force has the tendency to sink the object into the liquid. The second force is the upthrust of the liquid that acts vertically upwards. This upthrust is also called buoyant force and is equal to the weight of the liquid displaced by the immersed part of the object. This force has the tendency to raise the object in the liquid. Depending on the magnitude of the two forces, there are three situations that can arise. The first situation is when the weight of the object is greater than the buoyant force. When the weight of the object is greater than the buoyant force, which is equal to the weight of the liquid displaced by the object, the net force is downwards, and as a result, the object sinks. Here, the volume of the displaced liquid is equal to the volume of the object. The next situation is when the weight of the object is equal to the buoyant force. When the weight of the object is equal to the buoyant force, which is the same as the weight of the liquid displaced by the object, there is no net force, and as a result, the object neither rises nor sinks. It floats just below the surface of the liquid, and its apparent weight is zero. The object is said to be in a weightless condition. In this case, the volume of the displaced water is equal to the volume of the object. The last situation is when the weight of the object is less than the buoyant force. When the weight of the object is less than the buoyant force, which is equal to the weight of the liquid displaced by the object, the net force is upwards, and as a result, the object floats partially above the surface of the liquid. Here, the volume of the displaced liquid is equal to the submerged portion of the object. Now, once again, let's look at the example of the steel nail and ship. The steel ship displaces more water than the steel nail, and thus generates enough buoyant force to balance its weight. As a result, it floats. Thus, an object that is placed in a liquid will float if the weight of the liquid displaced by the immersed part of the object is equal to the weight of the object. This is called the principle or law of flotation. To summarize, the buoyant force is an upward force that a fluid exerts on an object that is placed in it. If the object's weight is greater than the buoyant force acting on it, then it sinks. If the object's weight is equal to the buoyant force acting on it, then it neither rises nor sinks. If the object's weight is less than the buoyant force acting on it, then it floats.